Hello and welcome to this final episode of our Marketing Models mini-series. It's looking at how to get your marketing done. You are listening to Marketing in Times of Recovery and I am your host, Ayo Abbas, Director of Abbas Marketing. If you've not had a listen to part one of this mini-series, do take a listen. It's about online and group programs, and part two, it looks at consultants and independents. Make sure you follow the links in the show notes to take a listen and find out more about those. Anyway, today we're looking at collectives. Collaboration is a hot topic across the built environment sector as people realise that we can do more together. So today's episode delves into collectives and how they can help to supercharge your marketing. My guests are Tanisha Raffiuddin and Neve. So let's get on and enjoy our conversation. Bye. Hi Luke, hi Tanisha, and welcome to the show. Tanisha, do you want to introduce yourself and your collective?
Absolutely. Thanks, Ayo. It's a pleasure to be here with both of you today. I'm Tanisha Raffiuddin. I'm the founder and creative director of Concept Culture. And Concept Culture is a boutique creative agency that helps built environment organizations grow their brand through strategic branding and marketing.
So Luke, do you want to introduce yourself and then we will talk about your collective that you're part of?
Yep, sure. I'm Neve. I'm director of Neve, which is a communications consultancy for the architecture, design and culture industries. And I'm really happy to be here today. Thanks for inviting me, Ayo.
Brilliant. And do you want to both introduce your collective? So Tanisha, do you want to tell us a bit about the LDN collective and how that works?
Sure. So the LDN collective is a virtual network of built environment professionals. And it was founded by Max Farrell, I think somewhere towards the end of 2019.
Okay.
And we go by the tagline of, "We are city makers." And no joke, between the group, we could actually make a city, because our group membership is made up a range of consultants all across the built environment, right from planning consultants to branding specialists and storytellers like myself.
Okay, fantastic. And Luke, do you want to introduce us to the Comms Crit and how that works?
Yeah, sure. So Comms Crits was set up in 2020 with myself, Rob Fiend and Bobby Jewell. And we were sort of having conversations around what was quite a tumultuous time and trying to think of ways to support architecture and design practices in an accessible, affordable way. We basically set up Comms Crits, founded on the idea of a crit that I think most people in architecture are very, very similar with.
Yeah.
And we've been going for about 2 years now, and we've done about 21 crits to date at the moment.
Oh, fantastic. So I guess, can you go into a bit of detail in terms of how you work and how you work with a practice? So they come to you and what happens, Luke?
Yeah, sure. So it kind of differs in terms of how people approach us. A lot of the time, architecture's practices will approach one of us individually and say, "I'm looking for some support on our communications activities." And through those sort of initial conversations, it will become clear that they might need some sort of crit or a conversation to put the groundwork down for their communication strategy going forward.
Okay.
And then at that point, we sort of introduce them to the wider group, whoever that might be. If somebody's approached me, then I'll approach them to Rob and Bobby. And then we go from there. And I could go a little bit into the process of how that works right now, if you want me to.
Yeah, go for it, Luke.
Yeah, sure. So we try to make it as simple as possible because we are quite aware that communications as a specialism can be a bit overwhelming for people that don't have the experience in the field.
Yeah.
So we work in 3 steps. So first, we give the practice some homework. We ask them for a collection of documents and links. So that's things like a link to their website,
yep.
links to their social media channels, any director profile and bios, a selection of current projects or projects that they've got upcoming that are important and they want to talk about.
Yeah.
Any news that's been out about their practice, press releases, and then any additional marketing materials. That's stuff that they might be sending out to clients or using in pitches.
Yeah.
And then Rob, Bobby, and I will look at all of that information together. have a conversation about where we think they might need help with. And then we have an hour Zoom call with the person who's doing the comms crit. Usually it's a small team. We welcome them to invite as many people as they like to come and be part of that conversation.
Fantastic.
And in that hour chat, we run through all of the documents that they sent through and kind of have a bit of a discussion about where they would like to be, all of those things that I think organizations sort of should have an idea about if they've got a business strategy. And then after that, we again go away and have a little bit of a conversation between us three.
Yeah.
And we create a report which covers short-term goals, long-term goals, and some in-depth marketing reviews of their different platforms. So like social media, website, and then if they'd sent them their marketing materials as well. So what we hope, or what we aim to do with each comms crit, is provide like a set of practical tools that they can take away and implement in an easy way, easy to understand way.
That's really comprehensive. So do you find that people do have a business strategy in place and things like that?
Not always.
No, because that's actually one of the conversations I've been having with people. It's like when you're like, actually, a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we kind of, we discover that in the initial conversations that we have with the practice.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, practices will come to us once they've finished their business strategy work, and they say, now we're ready for some comm support. Or we'll say to them, you're not ready yet, go and do your business strategy and then come back, and we can help you much more then. I think that's, anyway, like as a consultant, outside of the comms crits work, that's, you know, something that I'm sure all three of us here on the podcast today are familiar with.
Absolutely.
The business strategy needs to be sorted out first before you can do anything with comms, because otherwise it's way too freewheeling and they just won't get their return on investment.
I think it's when people come to you and they sort of say, you know, market this, and you're like, but there's nothing really there. You know, like exactly. Sometimes I'm like, it feels a bit like the Emperor's New Clothes. And you're there going, there does need to be some substance under it, under that pretty picture. Right. So Tanisha, how does the LDN Collective work? What's your kind of, I guess, modus operandi?
Sure. So we're slightly different to the comms crits, obviously. So as I said in the introduction, so we are a network of built environment professionals. Yeah. And there are about 50 odd. The membership moves around the 50 number. And it was founded by Max Farrell, kind of like out of a frustration as to how procurement takes place and how it can be a painful process for clients dealing with multiple consultants. Yeah. So he decided to bring all consultants under one umbrella. So to speak, and propose a new way of working for the client with a team of consultants. And essentially our message is that we can convene and disband like a film's cast and crew. Yeah. And that makes our teams agile and more responsive to a client's needs, and it saves them time and money without compromising on the results. Because if you do go on to the LDN Collective website and look at the expertise that's out there, it's an amazing range of expertise across the built environment, and it ranges from even like small boutique agencies like myself to larger companies like Elementa or AESG, for example. And so it is a membership. The collective is a membership model, and members pay a membership fee. And Max acts as the CEO and founder, and he coordinates all member activities. And we have things like monthly meetings, monthly member meetings, and now since the pandemic has slowed down a bit, we also meet in person. And the member meetings are a way for us to catch up on what's going on in the collective, what projects people are working on, if anyone has any ideas for pitches and stuff like that. Yeah. So there's a lot of value in being a part of at least the LDN Collective. For me, especially me as a smaller consultancy, like being a part of the collective accelerated Concept Culture's growth to a level that I probably wouldn't have been able to go by myself, and as it so happened, I joined as a member, but I am now working for the collective. So the Housing Collective is my client, and a number of people on the number of people are also our clients, and we would not have been able to do that had we not joined the collective. So for me, I'm coming into this conversation from both angles, as a member of a collective model, and also as the marketing and branding consultant of a collective.
Yeah. So you're doing both. That's good.
Yes.
So Luke, what do you think are the benefits of your kind of comms crit approach for your clients and the people that you're working with? I know you touched on some there, like agility and things like that, Tanisha. So from your perspective, is it three heads are better than one type of thing?
Yeah, well, we all bring slightly different skill sets to the comms crit experience, if you can call it that. Rob has a lot of experience with press and PR, as does Bobby. Bobby has worked with some organizations that are doing kind of like wider UK wide campaigns like ACAN.
Yeah.
So he has a bit more of an understanding of how to position work in a broader sense. And I have a big interest in digital and social media. So we can all kind of bring something different to the table. I think outside of like what the clients get out of it too, just between Rob and Bobby and I, we've always been, we've been friends for a really long time now, and we've all been working in the industry for, 8+ years. So we bring that sort of closeness and ability to give each other critical feedback and push each other to question certain things, which I think comes through in the final report by providing something that's really kind of comprehensive and has gone through a rigorous process of evaluation.
I love that, a rigorous process. I was like, arguing. No.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
We're very honest.
When you said that, I'm like, you're with Rob. That must be very honest.
I think we're all honest to each other. And actually, I think that's a really productive working environment. We are constantly asking each other what their opinion is on a certain thing, or whether they have advice to apply to a certain situation. And the comms crit itself came out of wanting to help people in a cheap, an affordable and easy to access way. But that it came from years of collaboration before then. And I think that sort of natural working together has really helped us.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, like working on your own is actually quite hard, and to have sounding boards, and when you come up with an idea and chat and talk it through with other people, it just makes a better product at the end of the day, doesn't it? Because then then they're bringing in their ideas and they're bringing in all of that as well. So you're not alone. And I think that's, the whole kind of thing about collectives is actually, it's a creative force together, isn't it? And it works really nicely.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you think there are kind of any drawbacks of collectives? Are there any that you see, Tanisha?
Well, like in any collaborative process, everything will take a bit longer.
Yeah.
So I think the more voices that are involved at a table, everyone's voice has to be heard. Everyone has to be given a say in the matter. So I think things will take longer. And then obviously, at least in the collective, there's 50 of us, 50 people. So getting everyone's diaries aligned, getting everyone to be at the same place at the same time is challenging. And that's why we have the monthly meetings, and that's in everyone's diary in advance. So I would say that if you're somebody who has less patience, maybe being a part of the collective is not for you, because it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint.
It's going to happen yesterday. And what do you see as any drawbacks, Luke?
I can echo Tanisha's statement, Dan. But it's obviously a bit easier with there's 3 of us.
Yeah.
But we do still, we make sure that we give each other space to give their feedback to the process.
Yeah.
And, we're all 3 of us are very busy communications consultants. So sometimes we set ourselves a deadline for a week after we have the Zoom call with the client to give the report. And we haven't broken that yet, but there have been times where we're like, we need to get this done now.
Yeah.
And so that, can be difficult as Tanisha said, dealing with other people's schedules to get the work done by a certain time.
Yeah.
But I think, you get around that. You put different strategies in place to help you. And I think things like having a strict deadline is
but it helps you in a way, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it gives you that focal point of, we've got a week to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And for us as well, the fee that we've set probably doesn't represent exactly the amount of time that we put into each report. But we made an agreement to do it at a certain level fee-wise, and we're sticking to that. And so as a result, we're trying to make sure that we're balancing the time that everyone is putting into it so that it's fair.
Yeah.
So that is also another, maybe could be considered a downside, that you don't want to overwork and deliver more than you maybe should be with each report.
Yeah.
So we're very wary of that each time we're doing it.
But I'm sure as you're doing more of them, you get more into the process as well, though, don't you, in terms of understanding and understanding what you're looking for and how to approach it and tackle it as well.
That's right. Yeah.
I can add to that.
Go on, Tanisha.
Yeah.
I can add to that as well in terms of the fee. So it's also, because also there are more people involved and there's only one pot of fee. So the fee that you get at the end is probably smaller than if you were going it on your own. But however, collaboratively pitching for projects opens doors to projects, more lucrative projects that you probably wouldn't have been able to pitch for yourself.
Yeah.
So there is a balance to be achieved on that front.
Completely. So have you got a kind of success story you want to share with us, Tanisha, of where it's kind of worked really well, the whole kind of collaborative approach or something like that? Is there something you can share?
I can share my own. Like I said,
she goes, I'm making money.
I can share my own. I mean, like I said, I just happened to come across the LDN Collective. It was during the height of the pandemic. Everyone was on LinkedIn. Everyone was more open to connecting on LinkedIn. I saw a post by Max Farrell, and I dropped him a line. I was like, "What is this collective? And can I learn more?" And then we had a chat, and I was like, "Oh, I'd love to join." And they, because the collective has a group of built environment consultants as well as the communications and branding group as well. So that's why we're slightly different, because we bring both elements together. It attracted me because I was, because I transitioned from being an architect and being a built environment consultant into marketing and branding. Yeah. So it was a really good opportunity for me to be a part of the collective, and we did some work together. And then Max asked me to formally run LDN's digital channels. So we started with social media, and then I pushed him to start the newsletter. So now we have this newsletter, and he has, the collective has benefited so much from that newsletter. It's incredible. And now as a group, we're going to MIPIM, and I probably wouldn't have been able to go to MIPIM if it was just me. But now growing as a group gives me the confidence to go to such a large
but
large
also it
event.
means you know people there, which I think is always a scary part of MIPIM, right? It's huge.
And like Max has personally said, like, I'm going to take you under my wing, and that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't a part of this group. And that's the community aspect of it is so important. And like you said earlier, working by yourself is hard, and particularly now in post pandemic and in the recovery period. So being a part of this community, having people to lean on as sounding boards and to check your ideas, and in my case, people who are far more experienced than me, it's literally, it's a feeling I can't put in words. I'm trying to, very difficult to, but I have benefited personally. Me as my personal brand and Concept Culture's brand has benefited immensely from being part of the LDN Collective.
Fantastic. And Luke, do you have a short story you can share with us as well?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, aside from the fact that we've done 21 crits so far, which
Woo-woo!
I think is that's
a lot.
basically one a month, which is really, really good. And we've got 3 or 4 booked in for the next few months, which is really great.
Yeah.
Just the positive feedback that we've had from basically every single report so far has been like overwhelming. The practices have been really grateful. So doesn't sound so honest, but it is. we're really happy that we're providing this support to the practices that have worked with us. And outside of that, it's really enjoyable to have updates from the practices that we've worked with. And we do quite often hear from people saying, we've just actioned that point that you said that we should do, or something like that. And that's just a really nice thing to see, that they are taking our advice on board and finding that the actions that we've suggested are easy for them to do themselves. Outside of that, sometimes they'll ask one or a couple of us to work with them in the future. So Bobby and I work with Delve Architects now as a result of, this comms process. Yeah. And even there, they're referring back to the report when we have meetings together. So it's nice to see that, when we're delivering a report, it's existing for a long amount of time after that we've actually sent it through, and that they are actually taking our suggestions on board.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's when you do a report and it's live and it's actionable and people are using it, rather than sitting on a drive somewhere. And that's the thing, isn't it?
It can happen.
I know, when you write those reports and it's literally, you're like, they're never seeing that again. They'll blow that off. They'll dust that off in like a year and go, oh.
Yeah. When they do the end of year review.
Yeah, when we're meant to do something. But no, I think that's the sign of a good report, is when it's used. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? And you do get a buzz from that.
I think so as well. And I mean, like, also just outside of the CommScript thing, as I said before, Rob and Bobby and I have worked together for a really long time, and we've been running events for the architecture industry where we try to do something a little bit different. And I think our combined experience and want to do something that isn't just like a architecture panel or something, we've created a lot of like fun, engaging events that have had great feedback as well in the past too.
So how can, if I'm a client and I'm thinking, right, this collective model, this is what I want to be doing. I want to be working with a number of people. What things should I be doing, or what should I be thinking about in order to appoint somebody? Tanisha, you want to kick us off?
I think it's this realization that you have access to a wider pool of talent. Yeah. And I think there is some value in that, because otherwise you'd probably have to procure, every consultant separately. But also you are going to be working with a group that has a combined mission and a combined vision. And we're all, for the most part, brand aligned. So you will get a committed team, I would say. Yeah. And so there's definitely benefits to approaching a collective over maybe a single practice. I think each approach will have its pros and cons, but I would say give it a try. I mean, be open to working in a different way that's different to the traditional route of procurement, I'd say.
And Luke?
It's a good question. Aside from having a business strategy all ready to go.
Yeah, which a lot of people don't.
I would say it's good to come to the table with an idea of what you want. I think the hardest conversations that we have with people are when they come not having a clue what they want. Yeah. They're just being told that they need to have some communication support and that's it. And you do get there eventually.
But it's harder
but it's much harder. It's a barrier that you have to overcome together. Whereas if somebody comes and says, quite honestly, I'm struggling with Instagram, or we haven't got much coverage for our projects, then those are clear, actionable areas where you can offer support.
Yeah.
If it's really need some help, you can't really.
I just need to be out there.
Yeah, I need to be out there.
Like there's a door.
Then it's much harder to have a productive session, and for both parties to get something from conversations together. So I would maybe do not really research, but just sit down, do a bit of an assessment of where you are and where you want to be, and then start to approach people. And the other thing I would say is approach a collective, sure, like one of us. If you think, a comms creator, if you think you might need to have a baseline for your communication strategy, or, speaking to an organization like Tanisha is part of, if you want, help to deliver some of this stuff. Yeah. But also it's thinking about like going to a few different people potentially. Yeah. Don't just go to one person, go to a few people, find that person that you gel with, because then the work will become so much more easier to deliver. You've got to have a good relationship, I think, for these things to be done successfully.
And I think on top of that, actually, what you said about finding the right person as well is, even when you talked about the skills, the different skill sets that you have within your collective, everyone, like, we can all have similar titles, but actually it's talking to us to actually know what our sweet spots are and those areas of expertise are for us as individuals. Because I think that is the key thing, is that, a comms consultant can have a whole plethora of skills depending on what, and I think it's finding that person who's got the skills that are right for what you need. And I think you're right that you can only get that from a conversation. That's not from a website. That's actually talking to somebody and really understanding what they are and what they do.
Yeah, I think it's really, really rare to be able to look at a website or someone's Instagram and say, we're going to give them, $1,000 a month retainer.
That would be nice, though. Did you? Yeah. I'm saying you're having the wrong calls. But no, completely. I think you have to have those conversations. And so are there any kind of particular questions or particular things that people should ask, do you think, if they're kind of scoping out a collective, or are there any kind of particular things that they should be ask people?
Aside from what we've already talked about already, the main thing that I think practices should welcome is the honest feedback. And it can be hard to hear sometimes if you've spent time in a certain area and it's not going the way that you want it to, but you need to have that feedback to make a positive change. And we'll try and give you as much practical feedback as possible. But if you're not honest about something, or you're not prepared to take honest advice, then it just won't be very productive at all.
And you won't get the results you're after either, will you?
No.
And I think being open is the key thing. And for you, Tanisha?
Yeah, I would agree with what Lucas just said. In any sector, when you're hiring a consultant, a single consultant or a group of consultants, the same principles apply. When you book a discovery call, for example, go prepared for the call. Give the consultant or collective as much information as you can about what your goals are, what you're looking to achieve, what's the timeline that you want to achieve it in, what's the budget. And I think that's something that people dance around way too much.
Budget's huge, isn't it?
Yeah. I think if you come as a client, if you come to the first conversation with an idea of budget, then that will make things so much easier, and it just saves everybody time. Because if you don't have the budget, then you're wasting the consultant's time, and I think that's a big bugbear for me, as I'm relatively young as a business owner, and the number of times I ask the client, "Do you have a budget, or what do you have a budget in mind?" They say, "I have no idea." I was like, "So why are we having this conversation?" Because and I think knowing what are you going to invest in the process, because definitely working with us. It's a two-way process.
Yeah.
So, do you have the time to invest when you're working with a marketing consultant? We have retainer clients as well. Just now speaking as Concept Culture, and I'm very upfront that you're going to have to put in the time to work with us. It's not like,
Fantastic.
we ask you for something and then you don't respond and just expect things to.
Like, where's my
happen.
coverage this month? And you're like, well,
no, exactly. Yeah. So that's my point is like, So realizing that this is going to be a two-way process, that you as a client have to invest your own time and you have to be committed to the process, and that you have a realistic budget, realistic goals, realistic timeline will just get you to where you need to go faster, in a more efficient way. And you will see the ROI, because everyone's like, oh, I don't see the value in this. I don't see the value in branding. I don't see the value in marketing. And if you are that person who doesn't see the value in branding and marketing, then it's not my job to convince you. Come to me when you are aware of the value of the branding and marketing, and then let's have a conversation.
That's so interesting and so refreshing. And also, I think the whole budget thing, I think, is a really interesting one, because it doesn't need to be a finite budget. It just needs to be, can even be in the brackets of,
a range, even a range.
I think that's absolutely fine, but just give you some kind of idea, because you're right. Because I think otherwise you're there and you're like, actually, this, because quite often now I actually do go back to people and say, actually, this is my day rate.
Yeah.
Because, and I say that quite upfront, because otherwise you are having conversations and you're like, are you going to be able to afford to work with me? And, or, and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm sure with collectives and anything else, it's going to be exactly the same. Sorry, Luke, did you?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to pick up on something that Tanisha said just then, and that was about time frame. Yeah. I think that is one thing that you also kind of come up against a lot with potential clients, is that they'll approach you a week before the project is about to finish. And, it's so much harder to do something with a project on that tighter time frame. In fact, I would probably say, no, I can't help you. I'm sorry. Because, you need time to generate the materials needed to best celebrate a project completion or a project going to planning. So that would be one piece of advice that I would give to any practice thinking about speaking to a communications person, is do your forecasting of when projects are going to go to planning, are going to be completing, et cetera, and get in touch with a communications person 3 to 4 months before the date of that thing happening, because that will give you the best chance to have a successful campaign around an individual activity. Anything less than that, you're probably missing out on a few opportunities that you could have got if you'd just given yourself a bit more time.
I have to admit, I always think when you start marketing, when people come to you when a project's done, I think you've lost the window. That is it. Because actually those stories that come as you're developing that project are probably some of the best content. And you've probably missed all of that window. And I always kind of think, actually, once it's done, that's, well, I mean, it's great to show you around it. But you know what I mean? I kind of think you get a lot more as you're going through a project, and why you've made a decision, and why you've chosen that material, and why, all of that those kind of granular things.
Story.
Yeah,
it's a richer story. It's a richer story.
Yeah. I think as well, also, maybe we're going a bit off piste here, but to talk about press and PR, it's much more difficult to place stories as a result of COVID having an impact on publications, and they're having their commissioning budget slashed and on all of that stuff. And they won't, if a project is completed and it's been completed for 3 months, they won't cover it. And you'll find it really, really difficult to get the coverage. So that's just another reason to try and give as much time as possible leading up to something, so that you can start those essential conversations with people like journalists as soon as possible.
Great. And I'd also like to add one more point. So I think you guys talked about, companies having a business strategy before they come to a comms consultant. I would also add, do you have a brand strategy? Do you know your why? Why do you operate? Do you know your purpose as a business? And I mean, Concept Culture's agenda is purely to work with businesses, but purposeful brands. So one of the first questions I asked is, what's your why? Why are you operating beyond profit? What's your purpose? And if they can't answer the why question, then I would find it difficult to work with them, because if you don't have clarity of what your brand is, how do you expect someone to be able to communicate that for you?
Yeah.
So the clarity of your brand has to start with you. And then obviously we're here to help you articulate what your brand is about. But having that clarity as a first step yourself will help the consulting team that you're working with to be able to amplify your voice better.
Brilliant. And we're going to finish on that note. So thank you both for coming on the show. And how do we find out more about you, Tanisha?
You can visit our website. It's conceptculture.co. We're also on social media as well. I'm looking forward to hearing from your listeners, Ayo.
Fantastic. And Luke?
Yeah, so you can find me personally on Twitter, on Luke M. Neve, and also on neve.agency. That's my website. And then for CommsCrits, it's commscrits.com or info@commscrits. And if you send it to that email, it will go through to all three of us, and one of us will get back to you.
Within 24 hours or something, right?
Yeah.
Then can I add the LDN Collective?
Yes, I think you should, as it was an interview for the LDN Collective.
That is correct. So yes, so we'd like to reach out to the LDN Collective. We are at LDN Collective, LDN-collective.com. And we're also on social media. And you can sign up for our newsletter. It's really cool.
It is lovely, actually. Max is really good at posting as well.
Yes,
fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. And yeah, so this will be out shortly. Thank you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the latest episode of Marketing in Times of Recovery. And I'm your host, Ayo Abbas. If you want to find out more about the bi-weekly show, do check out the show notes, which will give you more information about who the guests are and all the things we've covered. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on an episode. Until next time, bye.